so I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting of the Kaneland Unit School District 302. We would like to inform all board meeting member attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. And please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Barber.
Here.
Mrs. Junk.
Here.
Mr. Carey.
Here.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Here.
Mrs. Witt.
Here.
Mr. Lawler and Mr. Rivas are absent.
Okay, so with 5 members present, we do have a quorum. So first, would any board members want to move something from consent to new business?
No.
Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Go ahead. And a roll call.
Mrs. Junk.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0, so we'll move on to board and superintendent schools.
Yes, Mrs. Marissa, I know we've invited you with Mr. Rollman tonight to recognize our spring high school athletes and activities, and microphone's all yours. Welcome. Welcome to our students and families.
Thank you. So as we have done in the fall and the winter season, we're here tonight to share with you some of the highlights from our athletic and academic clubs and activities over the spring season. But one of the things I also want to point out for you this, as you listen to the presentations tonight, is that we often talk about doing things the Knights way. And I think one of the things that has been a highlight for me this year is, as we've done things the Knights way, it's not about just having amazing seasons and being proud of who we are, but it's continually looking at ways we can improve. And every single one of our clubs, activities, athletic groups, no matter where they performed and how they did this year, constantly are looking for ways that they can continue to grow, continue to improve, to bring more and more people onto their organizations and to share that with the community. So for that, I'm extremely proud to be a Knight, and I'm going to pass it off to David so we can share the details.
Thank you, Jill. First of all, I want to thank the school board. I want to thank the administration, in particular Mrs. Maris, because it's almost officially a year I've been and had the privilege of being the athletic director and activities director. I have said this many times, but maybe not publicly, and I want to say it tonight. This is literally the best job I've ever had. And so my wife and I continually are so happy that we moved into this school district, moved our kids into this school district for all the opportunities, and it's my privilege to be able to be a part of that and give our students as many opportunities as possible. So we do want to highlight all of our teams tonight. We're going to start with baseball. They have an awards night tonight, so they're going to get in here, tell you a little bit about their season, and then get out, and then we'll move on from there. So Ms. Traversa, if you would, and some of your players would come on up. Thank you.
I'm going to let Nick Panico and Alex Buchanan go ahead and speak on behalf of the baseball program now.
Okay, well, all right. I'm Nick, and this is Alex, and we're 2 of the captains on the baseball team this year. So each year, I'd say the baseball team has been pretty successful, and this year we didn't go as far as we wanted to, but we still had a very successful season. So at the beginning of the year, we set a few goals. Our first goal was to win 20-plus games, and we did that. Our second goal was to win conference by ourselves. We almost choked that, but we ended up getting that. And then last, we won our regional championship, and that was our big goal. And then even at the younger programs, we had some success. The freshmen placed second in conference, and the sophomores won conference. And Mason Hayne ended up winning that by a walk-off double to win the game in the last game of the series.
So our overall record was 27-10, which actually set a school record for wins for our baseball team. Previous record was 26. And we won the final NIB 12 Conference Baseball Championship with a 9-3 record, and we won our 5th regional championship by defeating Burlington Central 3-2. Unfortunately, our season came to an end against Dixon, who ended up finishing in fourth place in Class 3A. Some highlights of our season were we faced a lot of larger schools in our schedule, such as 4A runner-up St. Charles North, and we defeated St. Charles East, Batavia, Marmion, a state-ranked Plainfield South team, and a state-ranked Dunlop team. Oswego, and we swept Yorkville, who we've had trouble against in the past.
All right. Also, as we know, the weather this spring has been really, really bad. But we went to trips in St. Louis and Alabama, and the weather was beautiful there. We didn't have to worry about anything. And we were very successful there. We played teams that were like top 15 in the nation, stuff like that, and we held our own for a while. Also, the baseball team had for the 8th year in a row, actually. The team carries a 3.0 or better GPA. So...
We also have 7 graduates in our class that are going on to play baseball at the next level next year. 3 of us were named to the East-West Senior All-State All-Star Game, more than any other team in the state. We had 5 players, thank you, 5 players named to the All-Conference team and 1 honorable mention, and multiple players named to the All-Area teams.
All right, and to conclude our little spiel we got going on here, overall we had a pretty successful season. Like I said earlier, we didn't go as far, but the team really came together as a family this year, and I thought that was awesome. And then, we did our best for all the poor weather we experienced, and the field, we held our own for a while until it became too bad of a swamp, but it was still a great time.
Before they head out to the banquet, I want to make sure we recognize Mr. Aversa. In addition to his teaching responsibilities, his head coach responsibilities, he was one of our 3 assistant ADs. He was our fall assistant AD, and I just wanted to thank him publicly because as a new person coming into the building with everything going on, I really appreciated his support. So, Brian, thank you very much. At this time, if we could have Mr. Perillo and girls soccer come forward.
Okay, so I'm Bailey. I'm going to be a senior this year for the girls soccer, and then this is Vanessa and Megan. And as though mine's not as long as the baseball spiel, our record was 10-10-1, 4-4 in conference, second place in the Northern Illinois Big 12 Conference, lost in the regional championship game, second place in New Berlin, Wisconsin tournament. We had 6 all-conference players, 2 all-sectional honorable mention players, state recognition, 7 losses to teams ranked in the top 50 in Illinois, including a heartbreaking 2-1 loss in the eventual state champion Bennett Academy. Kaneland is very proud these girls, as injuries and sickness played a big part in the overall record, and I'm very excited for the next upcoming season. That's all I got.
Mr. Roman, really quick, the athletes, when you are done, if your group leaves, Mr. Adkins meets you out by the stairs if we can get a team photo. So as all of you finish up at some point when you leave, if Mr. Adkins, he'll be out there waiting for you, and then some of those seats can open up to others also. Okay?
Before we bring girls softball up, I think this is a good time to thank Mr. Payton, Mr. Bob Mance, and all of the crew. Having the wettest May in the history, I think, of Illinois, I thought they did a fantastic job of getting our fields prepared. Soccer, we have one of the nicest natural grass soccer fields in the entire state of Illinois. We continually get requests from top-ranked teams from all over the state to come play. They don't want to play on the turf, they want to play on our field. And again, with all the rain and everything that we endured this spring, I thought those guys did a wonderful job of getting our fields prepared, so I really appreciate everything that they do for us. Okay, Mr. Kiefler and girls softball, come forward, please.
Nobody told me that there was going to be this many people here tonight. So it was a little exciting. But I did practice my speech on what I was going to say tonight, and I still wrote it down just to make sure that I didn't stumble through it. But first of all, I want to thank everybody for allowing us to come in here and recognize these student athletes and the programs that they compete in. The Kaneland softball program this year had another tremendous season, and I say program, we really try to base our successes on how strong our program is, just not solely by what the varsity team has done with the state runner record or what they've accomplished throughout the year. So, in the past 4 years as head coach here at Kaneland High School, we continually see a growth in the whole program that to me is more exciting than just the varsity team, competing at that higher level or making that tournament run. So for me to see the program get better every year is really important. In the past 2 years and prior to the last 2 years, we really struggled to put a freshman team on our, in our building. And these last 2 years, our numbers have really jumped and continued to grow. That we've had 2 years of a really strong freshman class, and that allows us to fill 3 full teams. So for us, that's exciting to see them numbers start to come back and be strong. The Frost soft team this year, with that tremendously wet spring that we had an 8-6 record, and the number surely doesn't reflect on how well that team performed this year and how well they did. Unfortunately, because of cancellations, that freshman program, they get moved quite a bit, and a lot of schools don't want to reschedule. But they had a tremendous year this year at 8-6. JV team this year had the best record in the history of our JV, and it was 21-6. At the JV level, and then the varsity program had a 30-7 record. 6 of those losses were in the state of Illinois. 1 was out of state. So, we're real proud and happy about what our program has done over the past several years and this year. So we do have 3 young ladies that are with us, and they're behind me, and I'll introduce them girls here in a second. But I want to take just a quick second, thank everybody for allowing me to be part of the Kaneland way. I've been here for 10 years, and in the past 4 years as head coach here, we've hosted 3 regionals, 3 super sectionals, and it's an honor to me, and I think it should be to everybody here, that we're able to host those levels and that level of state tournament. And the super sectionals, for those that don't know, that's the last game before 2 teams have a shot to go to state. So 2 teams come through our school every year for the opportunity to go play downstate. So for us to host those tournaments, and then like I said, in the past 4 years we've hosted 3 of each, it's pretty exciting for me and to see that happen in our field. So the young ladies that are with us today: Olivia Ortigal, Maddie Wheatley, and Donatella Samasi.
Okay, I'm going to start off with some varsity highlights. And like Coach Mike said, this year we were 30-7 overall. And for our spring break trip in Myrtle Beach, we were 4-1. We won the Washington Classic tournament for the first time in 4 years. And we were Northern Illinois Big 12 Conference champions. And we also won regionals. Some JV highlights were that they were 21-6 overall. They were undefeated in the Rockford East tournament, and they were Bryan JV tournament champions.
We had 6 girls on our team who were named 2019 Northern Illinois Big 12 All-Conference selections, and those athletes were Emily Erickson, Haley Roach, Rose Roach, Donatella Macy, McKenna Ryan, and Maddie Wheatley. And our 2019 Northern Illinois Big 12 Player of the Year was Rose Roach. And then we also had multiple players who were named Northern Illinois Big 12 Academic All-Conference: Emily Erickson, Cassidy Motika, Veronica Latka, Lily Lindgren, and Rachel Hendricks.
Okay, so we also have a couple 2019 Northern Illinois Big 12 Academic All-Conference honorable mentions. Those people were Maddie Wheatley, Haley Roach, Donatella Samasi, and Kelly Fabry. We also have some 3A All-State selections. On the first team, we have Emily Erickson, who is a junior, Rose Roach, who is a sophomore, And then our second team, we have Haley Roach as a senior and Donatella Samasi as a junior. And then Rose Roach was also named 2019 Daily Chronicle Player of the Year.
Thank you.
First of all, I've been up here 3 times this year to talk about our athletes and allow our athletes to talk to you about their successes and their seasons. And I got to say, it's a pretty easy job as well as they perform. Next up, our boys track team, Mr. Drendel, and I think he's brought 3 athletes with him.
All right, for those who have come to an awards night, if you put a microphone in front of me, I'll talk for 3 hours. So I'm going to introduce to you my 3 athletes, and I'm going to let them take over. I brought Nate Burmese. If anyone was at the sectional or heard about it, he made the state qualifying jump and the pole vault to keep a streak alive at Kaneland. It's absolutely unprecedented. Kaneland's qualified a pole vaulter to the state track meet since 1984. So big time pressure jump. I brought Teddy Allen, the blonde one behind me. I'm sure a lot of you know Teddy. He talks to everybody. Super nice kid. Very fast, extremely talented. If you ever talk to him, though, you'd never know it because he's very humble. But Teddy has 1 school record and is on 7 of our top 50 lists. And then finally I brought Austin Adams, who if you just ask him, he'll tell you he's real fast. He's took 4th place in the state this year in the 800-meter run. He's the 5th fastest 800-meter runner in Kaneland history. And the best part is all 3 of these guys are coming back next year because they're juniors and sophomores.
All right, so we had a lot of success this year as a team, and a lot of individuals had success as well. But a few highlights were the Peterson Prep, our big home meet we hosted. We won that one, and we won by a lot. And then we also won conference. We defended our title in conference again. We won it last year. We won it again this year. And we also had some great camaraderie as a team. Everyone that went to state, we all met up and dyed our hair blonde beforehand. It was great. It was just super fun. All the bus rides together, all the time we spent together. And those are the memories that I'll remember forever. And it was a great year.
Yeah, going off what Austin said about like the bus rides, this is so much more to me and everyone else than just a sports team. It's a family, and these are memories that are going to stick with you your entire life, no matter how old you are. And it was really fun to be a part of this program.
I think it was awesome to see how we came together as a team, and our success this year has really opened my eyes for our potential for next year and years to come.
All right, Coach Sroka and the girls track team, you're up next.
Hi guys. I'm usually not allowed to have a microphone either, so I'll go really fast too. I just first want to thank the board for affording me the opportunity to coach again. It is sincerely my passion, and it's always my goal with the girls to get them as passionate and as excited about track as I do. And I just think that we have a great time. Our numbers were up from the past couple years, which I think is a really good sign. And as you've heard already, the weather was not our friend at all this year. And with the limited amount of time that we had to practice, these girls just went out there every single time and never ever disappoint. We run in the halls, we run in the gym, we do everything we can. And some of the events that they compete in, they did not have an opportunity to practice at all until we got to a meet. And with that limited time to practice, they did amazing things. We took 10th in our sectional, which may not sound really great, but that is quite an accomplishment. We are 3A now, which I think is a little high for us considering the size of our school. But these kids, they just go out there and they give it 100% every single time. I don't want to say too much because I could go on and on, so I'll just leave it to them. I've got 2 of my throw squad here. We had amazing, this is my 14th year coaching at Kaneland, I think. We had such a strong field. Usually we are stronger on the track than the field, but we are so well balanced this year. I look so forward to, just for recording purposes. Do I need it? Am I using my teacher voice? It's for the okay. I really look forward to the next couple of years because we have a young team and we're just strong all the way around. So I want the girls to introduce themselves and they can tell you some of the highlights of their season.
Okay, my name is Abby, and I think the best part of my season was the amount of girls that we had throwing this year. Because if you've ever seen like high school girls throwing, there's usually like 2 to 3 girls max on a team. And I think this year we had over 10. So I think that's like a great testament to Coach Shroka and our whole program. So.
We got a great group of coaches.
Oh, okay. My name's Ashlyn, and my highlight for this season was probably going to sectionals thanks to my coaches. And like she said, there were some setbacks due to the weather and time, but I think overall our track team did really good.
My name's Marissa. I was part of the throw squad, and we had a great season this year, and I'm really proud of how far we all came as a team. We worked really good together. We had great chemistry as a team from the get-go. Just had a blast. Probably my favorite highlight was sectionals was really fun too, like making it as a freshman, just as Ashlyn, and making a bunch of the throw finals. That's always good. And yeah, it was great. It was a fun time.
I had one more athlete come, but I don't know if she got lost in the back. Gianna, are you here somewhere in the back? She's one of our distance runners. I'm surrounded by a great team of coaches too, which I think we work together as a family. We don't section off into things, and I think that that's helped a lot with the kids. And I just look forward to next season with these guys. They're awesome. It's the best part of my day.
I'm not sure. I don't think we had anybody that was able to make it from lacrosse. Is there anybody here from lacrosse? I didn't see anybody check in. Excellent. There's Mr. Shaw. Thank you. Mr. Shaw.
This year we had 48 kids come out for the sport. We've got another 20 signed up for next year, freshmen coming in. Varsity team went 5-6. We lost the playoff round in overtime by a point. Our JV though went 7-4, so they did really good, and we're looking forward to a good and fun season next year. All the boys are playing right now, so I left them at Nike Park at the summer league, so that's where they all are. Thank you.
I do want to recognize Mr. Shaw, his wife Ann, and Wes Williams, who is our head coach, also a volunteer. Again, we ended up with 50 kids signed up, 48 that stayed for the whole season. That sport continues to grow. It is, I would say, very successful so far at Kaneland High School. So successful that the IHSA reached out to us and asked us to host part of the lacrosse sectional this year, which was very successful. We had 4 teams. Unfortunately, we weren't one of them. We just missed out, but 4 teams again come into Kaneland and be a part of our hospitality and how we host things. And that kind of leads me to the fact that over this course of the school year, we hosted 9 separate IHSA events at the Kaneland High School campus. We already have been asked to host a couple already for next year. We're pushing again for cross country, and I think that'll happen. I think softball is going to happen again. The IHSA likes to come to Kaneland. They like the way we do things. A lot of it has to do with our parental support and our volunteers. If you've ever been to the Eddington or any of our track meets or our cross-country meets, you can see what I'm talking about when we talk about the volunteers and the support that our community gives both our athletes and our performers on both sides. So again, a tip of my hat to all of those people that supported our programs and allow us to highlight the great community that we're all a part of. So thank you. Just a couple more things I wanted to highlight for the board this evening. This year, we were able to hire a new wrestling coach, a new basketball coach, Ms. Schroka as the girls' track and field coach. Just before I was hired, Mr. Goff hired two great cheerleading coaches in the Herring sisters. We'll be looking to hire a new dance coach and a new color guard coach. But the people that we are getting to apply for our positions are really highly qualified candidates. I would say the same thing for the many assistants that we ask or that we get. And the one thing that I was not prepared for in this community is the number of people that want to come and volunteer just to help our kids and give back to our kids. And I would say probably in the rise of 70% or more are Kaneland athletes. In fact, two people that I spoke to this weekend that are interested in coming back are also both Kaneland athletes. So I think it's a tremendous testimony to our community that people want to come back and give back to the kids because of the experiences that they had. I want to, absolutely. A couple of things I already know as we go into the Interstate 8. We will again be hosting the math competition, which we have done repeatedly year after year. And in that meeting, when we were deciding who was going to host math, there wasn't much of a discussion. They said, "You guys do such a great job. Will you continue to do it in the I-8?" We said yes. We're going to continue with soccer. We'll be hosting conference tournaments in soccer and bowling. And again, the IHSA has reached out and asked us to host bowling sectionals for our girls next year. One little footnote about our new conference, the I-8. There was some logos that were put forward for the new conference. I am proud to say that Mrs. Nikki Larson, one of our fantastic teachers, and some of her students put forth a couple of logos for the I-8, which the I-8 has adopted as the new logos. So in every school, in our new conference, our logo will be there. A couple more quick thank yous. I did mention Mr. Aversa. I also want to mention Mr. John Pavlak, our winter assistant AD, and Mr. Javier Martinez. Again, there's no possible way as a first-year AD I get through this without them and with the help of Stephanie Douglas, our administrative assistant. I certainly want to thank all of our coaches, not only our head coaches, but all of our assistant coaches. One thing that we do now is I meet with our head coaches weekly during the season, and those were the best conversations I had all year. I learned how to support our student athletes by listening to those coaches, and they are very honest and forthright, and I really appreciate all the support that our coaches give. I also want to make sure that we thank our parents. I knew this when we moved in here, but it's very evident now. If you're going to have a son or a daughter in any of our programs, you're going to drive. And it's amazing to me the amount of support that we get from our parents, and I think all the success that you've heard from our athletes and our non-athletes as well this year have a lot to do with all the support that they get at home from our parents. So parents, congratulations and thank you very much. And I saved the last piece because I think this is the most important piece. This is why I come to work every single day. Excuse me. It is our student athletes. During the process when I was hired, does that mean I'm out of time? Usually that happens to Andy. When I was hired, one of the interviews included several of our student athletes. And I have taken so much from those conversations and the conversations that I've had with our student athletes throughout the year. One of the things that we started this year was an athletic council. And I think we've had a lot of success early on with that. I really look forward to our second year. We've got a lot of the logistics out of the way. But so many of the ideas that come across, as Mrs. Maris talked about, improving our programs all the time, those are coming from our student athletes. Those are coming from those conversations when they're willing to come into the office and talk to us. And as you can see here, there may be a little nervousness about it, but they certainly want to come and give their opinion, and we will certainly continue, athletes, to give you that option because you guys are just awesome to work with, and I appreciate that very much. Last but not least, a few dates I want to make you aware of. Friday, August 23rd will be our Nights Under the Lights. Coach Ryan has asked to bring a football scrimmage back that night, so we'll be celebrating that as well as all our fall athletes. 2 days later will be our Taste of Kaneland, so it's going to be a true celebration all weekend of all things Kaneland. Our first home football game will be the following Friday, August 23rd at home against Hinsdale South. And then if you haven't heard already, October 11th will be our homecoming this year. So again, school board, community members, thank you very much, and we look forward to another great year next year.
All right, and I think there are some pictures going on. A lot of people have gone to take advantage of those. If you want to get your picture taken with Mr. Atkins, and any other salutes.
I wanted to see are there any of the Harder students? I know Mr. Hewells was not able to make it, but he gave me an update to share. So did any of our Harder track students make it? Okay, I want to share the names and their accomplishments, and we'll invite them to the July meeting or August when we're back in school. Sometimes trying to corral some of our students in the summer can be a challenge. But congratulations to our track program at the recent IESA state track meet. Sarah Watson finished 5th in the 400 meters. For the 8th grade girls, 4x200 placed 3rd. Libby Saloga placed 7th in the pole vault. And Eric Johnson was the state champ in the hurdles. So we had a state champ, which will be neat when you get to meet him at some point, and the other students. And then also 6th place, Eric Johnson finished in 6th place in the long jump. So congratulations to those students and all of our Harder students.
Any other salutes? No? All right, so we will move on to public comment. The board values public input to inform our decision-making and to provide information and insight into what is happening throughout the district. Board meetings are held to conduct the business of the Board of Education and are required by law to take place in public. However, they are not public forums. We use the public comment section as an opportunity to listen to our stakeholders. For that reason, the board does not enter into debate or respond to questions spontaneously or without proper investigation and deliberation. In most cases, concerns or questions requiring follow-up will be referred to the superintendent. If you choose to speak publicly, we ask that you stand, state your name and village of residence or your association with us for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less so that all who wish to speak may have that opportunity. You are encouraged to seek a private appointment to discuss matters concerning individual students or staff members. While public education can be an emotional issue, and understandably so, the board strives to maintain a certain level of decorum at the meeting. Those who speak are expected to maintain a tone of courtesy and civility. The floor is now open to public comment, and if you have public comment, if you could go to the microphone, which you know.
My name is Rainey Good. I'm from Sugar Grove, and I'm the president of the Kaneland Education Association. And I'm speaking on behalf of 346 members who are teachers, social workers, counselors, psychologists, nurses, and speech pathologists within the Kaneland School District. I am a community member, and I have lived in the Kaneland District for 25 years. Both of my sons attended Kaneland schools and graduated in 2010 and 2014. This school year was my 15th year teaching in the district, including 5 years in 2nd grade and the past 10 years in 6th grade. And I am proud to be a part of the Kaneland community. I am among those 346 KEA members. We are Kaneland. Many of our members live here. Our children go to school here, we pay taxes here, we care deeply about what happens here, and when you invest in us, your professional educators, you invest in our community. KEA's current contract will soon expire on June 30th. We have been negotiating for over 7 months in hopes of achieving an agreement well before the new school year would begin. Because we are coming up to the end of this contract without an agreement, on May 22nd, KEA requested to begin mediation with the district, and our first session of mediation is set for June 27th. The district says they value their teachers, and we are simply asking them for a fair agreement that values our educators and manages our workload. Perhaps most importantly, we're asking the district that expresses value in us to not devalue our earnings over time. Over the last few years, more and more demands have been placed on our teachers as new programs and initiatives are being approved and implemented throughout the district. This includes continued work on personalized learning, new math and writing continuums, curriculum revisions and implementing the new curriculum, newly adopted one-to-one technology, a new student management system called Canvas, possible e-learning days, a shift from RTI intervention model to the MTSS model, standards-based grading, and development of proficiency-based tables. KEA values all of these initiatives, and especially social-emotional learning. While the district is embracing these new ideas and initiatives, teachers are managing their new workload while still working to plan quality lessons and experiences for students in their classrooms every day to best meet their learning goals. We take this in stride, being in education. However, we take issue with the rate at which these changes are being implemented. The new initiatives have drastically increased teacher workload, while we are frantically learning new systems and creating tables and new approaches to meet the district's demands related to these new initiatives. Our community also wants quality teachers among us who will stay in our district and with our students for the long haul. If we don't make our working conditions and salaries fair and competitive, we will not be able to attract and retain quality educators. We want a community of teachers who will invest in staying for a long career with the assurance that their commitment will be valued. This is what is best for students and for our community. We are Kaneland teachers. We are proud to serve this community and our students. When our teachers are valued and supported, our students are strong, our schools are strong, and in turn, our Kaneland community is strong. Thank you for your time.
Are there any other public comments? No? No one is in the hall? All right. So seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Tonight, the consent agenda consists of the following action items: the approval of accounts payable and payroll June 2019, approval of treasurer's report May 2019, approval of minutes of the May 29th, 2019 regular meeting, approval of resignations of employment of staff, approval of prevailing wage rate resolution, approval of destruction of audio recordings from closed session meetings from November 2017, approval of memorandum of agreement for the executive director of the Kaneland Arts Initiative, approval of classroom use with Mid-Valley Special Education Cooperative, and the following informational items: the student suspension data report, the Freedom of Information Act report, and the conference attendance fourth quarter professional development report. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mrs. Farber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt. Aye. Mrs. Junk. Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. So next, we are going to move on to an introduction of a guest. Dr. Lee?
Yeah, before we start new business, wanted to make sure that the consent agenda was approved, because in the personnel, we do have a new Director of Ed Services, Mr. Raleigh, here with his family. I'd like to welcome Patrick to his new role, and if you don't mind, feel free to take the microphone and introduce us. We know the Kaneland family well from McDowell and your years at John Shields. Please introduce us to the Raleigh family.
Sure. So I am here with my wife, Jennifer, and our three daughters. Ashlyn is going into second grade next year. Harper is going to be starting kindergarten, and Sydney is going to be starting preschool. So I think we're going to hire everybody in the room, because they've been spot on with their behavior. They've been doing awesome tonight. So super, super excited for my new role here. I want to echo a lot of what Mr. Rollman had to say of this being the best job and the best district that I've been a part of. And I got to share with one of the many groups that I met with during the interview process, and I shared that I grew up in a town that was rivals with Kaneland, and we played them often in sports, and everything that I heard from our coaches, we were often compared to the Kaneland students, and we were compared to how well the men and women of that district carried themselves and how attentive they were to their studies, and our coaches knew all these things through associating with other coaches, and seeing the kids getting a chance to come up here and represent their own teams reiterates that. It holds strong 20 years later, and it's something that I value, and it's something that just very appreciative of the district allowing me to grow, allowing me to learn, and I'm incredibly excited for the new challenge and the new position ahead, and I'm very, very thankful for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. I wish I could be in the car ride home to see as it all unravels, as it does many times, but hope it's a quick ride home and they're perfectly behaved.
I bet there's going to be some sleeping.
Thank you.
I was guessing ice cream cones. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to J1, approval of 2019-20 tentative budget for Fox Valley Career Center.
Dr. Fuchs?
Tonight, we have to approve the tentative budgets for both Fox Valley Career Center and Kaneland School District 302. We'll start with Fox Valley. As many of you know, Fox Valley does have its own board comprised of area superintendents of the school districts that make up the Career Center. However, Kaneland serves as the administrative agent for Fox Valley Career Center. In our Kaneland business office, we do everything for Fox Valley that we do for Kaneland. We pay salaries, we provide benefits, we do all of their invoices, purchase orders, pay bills, etc. Additionally, we do their budget in the system, and that's why we're here tonight, is to present the budget for Fox Valley to the Kaneland Board of Education. In the Fox Valley budget, it takes into consideration all of their registration, enrollment, staffing, supplies, technology, and equipment. They are primarily funded through tuition from the students or the schools for the students that attend the Career Center. Additionally, they get a small amount of money from the state through the CTEI grant. Their expenditures then are primarily similar to the rest of the district of Kaneland: salary and benefits, supplies, purchase services, etc. In this budget that you have in front of you, the projected enrollment is just slightly less. We are reducing the early childhood program, and so that's reflected in the budget. As a result, Dr. Burchell is projecting a lower amount of revenue from tuition than in the prior fiscal year. On the expenditure side, similarly, there's a slight decrease. However, the revenues still are projected to outpace the expenditures. For Fox Valley, it will always be that way. They will project high, and then in the fall, Kaneland will receive a refund from Fox Valley for anything that we overpaid throughout the prior fiscal year. Additionally, the other school districts will do the same. So they collect the money up front, they spend the money, and then when there's extra money, it goes back to those districts the following year. That's the pattern. I've provided for the board a copy of Dr. Burchell's budget in two different formats. One is the program format, and the other is from our SDS software, so that you can see what he has requested has been input into the system. The Fox Valley Board did meet and approve the tentative budget. Throughout the summer, as there are changes and updates, they'll be made, and I'll bring a final budget for you in September, again along the same timeline as Kaneland's budget. At this time, Madam President, the recommendation or questions?
Yeah, are there any questions? No? Ryan, you're moving? Nope. Okay. All right, seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion that the Board of Education approves the 2019-20 Fox Valley Career Center tentative budget as presented. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt. Aye. Mrs. Junk. Mr. Carey.
Motion carries 6-0. We will now move on to the approval of the 2019-20 tentative budget for the Kaneland School District 302.
Dr. Fuchs?
All right, I have a presentation, so I'm
There's a
hopeful that
couple
I can
chairs up here.
get to the computer.
That's selling one more. There we got it.
They're both on, they're both on right now, so it'll be just a minute, somebody logged me out. Mr. Roman, we're here. There we go. Whoa. Now it won't stay. There we go. All right, that's fine. Alrighty. So for our tentative budget, tonight we're going to talk about the following topics. Go through the budget calendar, the 18-19 budget review. That's the fiscal year that we're currently finishing. We'll have the 2019-20 budget highlights, revenue and expenditure summaries, budget challenges, questions and answers. With that being said, your calendar for the budget is in your board binder here. Take a peek at that. It's in the first section right behind the administrative names. We began working on the 19-20 budget back in September of 2018. So there are certain times during the fiscal year when we are working on 3 budgets at a time. For example, the auditors are here and we're currently working on the 2018-19 audit. We're planning for 19-20, and very soon we'll be looking ahead to 2021. So we're always budgeting in one way or another. As we come through, you can see we are all the way down to June 24th, 2019, so we're nearing the end of the 2019-2020 process, where we'll adopt the tentative budget tonight. In July and August, we'll have various updates. You'll hear me talk tonight about the various assumptions. For example, we don't know right now what we're getting from the state of Illinois, and so hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll know that information. On August 26th, I will provide an update to the board, and then I'll ask the board to adopt the final FY20 budget on September 9th, which will follow a budget hearing. So basically, we'll follow that timeline unless if something happens that would change it. So then beginning with the 2018-19 budget review, we adopted a $59.4 million operating budget in September of 18. Our total budget was $73.2. Our actuals, we just finished last week prior to the board packet coming out with about $57.4 million or 71 total. During our 18-19 school year, the enrollment decreased slightly at about 2.3%, and our salary increases for the 18-19 year are listed. Generally speaking, they were 1.8% for non-speak employees and administrators, 2.12% for KEA, and speak got about 3.4%. We did receive about $7 million in EBF state payments, which was approximately $120,000 more than the prior fiscal year. We are currently waiting for one more EBF payment of approximately $315,000 and one mandated categorical payment of approximately $1 million. I think we're going to get those two payments before June 30th. If we do, it will add to what you're hearing about tonight. That means that in fiscal year 18-19, we will have received 5 payments from the state. One of those 5 is from the prior fiscal year, 17-18. So we will have received 5 payments, and we budget for 4 because that's what we're supposed to receive, but the state is behind. Yes, it will. It will make us whole. And that'll be for the first time in a couple years. So, but they've been pretty aggressive this fiscal year so far. The last state payment mandated categorical that we received was 60 days earlier than the year before when we received it. So they are trying to catch up. So that's a good thing. We continue to work with Forecast 5 on our budget projections, and we are projecting to end the year with a surplus of about $2.7 million. I do want to talk a little bit about the surplus. It is unusually high for this budget year, and I want to kind of go through a few of those things for the board. There are several things that make up that surplus. The first thing is that we will receive approximately $400,000 more in revenue than expected or than budgeted. That's about 0.7% of the budget. So that was very, very close, 99.3%. Our expenditures, really that line item there, and we're going to go into detail just a little bit on this, is where we really underspent this year for a variety of reasons, some of which we're still looking into. Our 18-19 budget had a planned surplus of $259,000 when we approved the budget back in September. So when you add those 3 things together, you get $2.7 million. With regard to the revenues, there were 3 line items that primarily contributed to the additional monies. The interest income we received this year was about $305,000 more than budgeted. As you all know, interest rates have been going up, and we underestimated how quickly they would go up. We knew that they probably would a little, but they went up well, and so that's a good thing. We also did not budget for the fiber grant from the state. We were supposed to receive it the year before. Then we didn't know if we were going to get it, and so we were conservative and didn't put it in there. So we did get the money finally, and it was $164,000, and that helped to finish off all of our fiber projects. So again, another really good thing. Special ed reimbursement. The prior year, we were reimbursed for the prior year at $5,000, which wasn't very much. So we didn't budget much because the prior year before that, there wasn't much either. This year, though, in the states being behind, we ended up getting about $165,000 more. Something I want to point out, those numbers total more than $400,000, but just like those are the 3 highest contributors, there's also several line items at the other end where we're under budget. So I'm just trying to point out a few of the highlights. On the expenditure side, this is where we've underspent. Salaries, we had an unusual number. Mr. Atkins and I went through the list today. We had an unusual number of staff for various reasons that did not finish their contract. When that happens and we fill them in with a substitute, it's a different line item. So then this line item actually goes under. You might be saying, well, did the subline go under? And the answer in a few minutes is going to be no. There's still extra room in there, and I'll talk about that shortly. The benefits line item, we were under by about $400,000. I am going to look into that one. It shouldn't have been that much slack. The person that puts that budget together is no longer with us. So I will have an opportunity to work with a new person to try to tighten that up for the 1920 budget year. That's unusual, and so I want to dig into that a little bit further. The special ed tuition, if you take a peek at that, last year we spent $1.485 million on outplay students and their tuition. So we increase that because each year we get a few more students, tuition goes up. That's a normal pattern. At this point, we've only spent $1.1 million, which is $352,000 less than what we had budgeted. I've been working with Fran since last week to try to figure out what happened. We're not sure yet, but the one thing we're waiting on that we think is that we're going to receive an additional bill for the 18-19 school year that we'll have to pay. Now, the fiscal year is closed, so that bill will actually be paid out of next fiscal year. But when the auditors do their accruals, they'll accrue it back to this fiscal year. So, as always, the numbers that you're seeing are my cash numbers, but when we get the AFR in October or September or October, that will be based on accrual, and that will show exactly how it ended up being for the expenditures and the revenues for the full fiscal year. Another thing that we did, special ed transportation, you can see last year we spent $1.857. I budgeted $1.85. I knew that it might go down because we're doing more routes in-house, but I didn't bring it down all the way because as you get more kids, you still need to provide them transportation. At this point, that's also unusually low or under budget. We believe that Illinois Central still owes us a bill as well for that, and that difference was $320,000. So you can see we've got just some really odd things happening. The budgets are right on, but the things are happening that are outside of our control, really. Additionally, with special ed, it is possible that, for example, you had, for the tuition, a more expensive student maybe age out, and then a less expensive student come in. And those are things that we have little control over on an annual basis. We can plan for the students that we know, and we do. But for the ones that aren't here yet, that come in with special needs, we do plan for them as well to the best of our ability. The last line item then that is a significant contributor are substitutes. We spent a little over $700,000 and budgeted a little over $8,000. That was probably a little high. I want to go back and look at that for the 1920 budget. On the other side, we spent about $40,000 less this year than last year, which again is just odd. Usually subs go up, but we're going to take a look at that and see where we can, again, bring it a little bit closer to budget. The budget is a puzzle that we put together over many months with many different people contributing. The information that we get in the business office from all of our department chairs and all of our administrators is really important, and we stress to them the importance of trying to be as accurate as possible. But again, they're filling out a budget in March to try to prepare for the following school year, and sometimes there are just things that are unplanned, and that's why you see this. So with that being said, I've accounted for about 1.8 of the 2 million. There's about another 180,000, and that's simply spread out amongst the 2,500 line items, either high or low throughout the rest of the budget. But I've pointed out what I consider to be the top 5 things contributing to this surplus. Of what? The surplus?
The expense side?
Oh, it's at the bottom there. It's the 1.8 million of the 2 million of the expenditures. Remember, there were 3 line items that contribute to the surplus: the revenues, the expenditures, and then the budgeted surplus. So I was accounting for about 1.8 million of the 2 million.
Of just the expenditures?
Just the expenditures. Yep. Yep. So with that, I'm going to move on to the 1920 budget highlights. Tonight, we're asking the board to adopt 61.2 million of the operating budget. Our total budget will be 74.6. It's about 1.8 million more, or 3.1% more than last year. The Ed Fund may have a slight deficit at this point until we know more information. The O&M and transportation funds are both showing a surplus. Revenues in the operating fund, right now we have a balanced budget with revenues exceeding expenditures by about $39,000. So our revenues we think are going to be around 61.3 million. Please know that the majority of the additional money comes from the local property taxes. Without the local property taxes, we would have significant problems. Our operating expenditures, again, at 61.2 million, about 3.8 more million than what was spent in 18-19. And our salaries is about 75 to 80% of our budget. And right now, most of our salaries are unknown. And so the only salaries that are in there at the known amount are the speak salaries at 1.7%. Revenue summary, you can see the majority of it, 79%, are from property taxes. Our state revenues at 19%, that hasn't changed, and about 2% of federal dollars. Again, state and federal dollars have been fairly consistent, with the exception that the evidence-based funding model has produced a little over $100,000 extra for the past 2 fiscal years. We have not heard yet what we'll be getting in the 1920 school year, but hopefully by September we'll know that information. I know the state board is working on it. That's what I'm hoping. Not yet. Expenditure-wise, we spend about 52% for instruction, with another 43% on support. And so support and instruction equal about 95% of our budget. Support services, in case if you're wondering, include administrative, technical, and logistical support to facilitate and enhance instruction. I've given you the 3 major funds, the operating funds, and some summary information. I know that you have it in your packet and that you can read it. I would just point out a few things. Your Ed Fund is your largest, primarily contained of salaries and benefits. Transportation, we have ordered 6 one-year-old buses to replace buses to keep our fleet current. We do travel a significant number of miles with our buses every year. In operations and maintenance, we have lots of good things happening this summer at about a little over $600,000 of projects. EBF, I mentioned, we got a little over $100,000 for the past 2 years in additional monies, so that's a good thing. Please note that the budget assumes 4 state-mandated categorical payments, so in a year like this one, when we might get that 5th payment, it will boost us, as opposed to years when we only get 3 payments, where then it hurts us. So it is a little bit of a shift for us in terms of what's the state going to do. Currently, we're negotiating with KEA, so welcome tonight. It's nice to have such a large crowd for the budget presentation. Appreciate that. And with that being said, I'd be happy to answer any of the board's questions.
All right, any questions?
How much of that 2.7 is one-time?
On the revenue side, I would say the fiber and the sped reimbursement are one time. The interest income is recurring. But I do know that it's predicted that the Fed's going to decrease interest rates again this year. Last year, they increased them. I think they're going to try to control some of that and decrease them in the next quarter. So while interest income is recurring, probably not at this rate, something to consider. On the expenditure side, your salary and benefits are recurring. The special ed tuition is recurring, but in this example, I'm thinking it's one time because I still think we're going to get a bill that'll be accrued. Same thing for transportation from Illinois Central. Substitutes is recurring, but I'm going to try and tighten that one up. It's not nearly as significant as some of the other ones, but it's still worthy enough to make sure I take a second look at that.
Is there a way that we can tighten up reporting or something with the special ed? Like when a student ages out, I mean, it seems like there would be an audit at the end of the year, and they would say, okay, how many are aging out? And then, so that it could come back to you, so that it would, we would at least be able to tighten up the assumptions there, so that when you're budgeting, you'll have some kind of an idea of where and I know it changes during the year.
It does. And then not only that, but with the special ed, so the things happen in one fiscal year, and then you're reimbursed in the following. And the reimbursement rates from the state have varied for the past few fiscal years. So sometimes, like 2 fiscal years ago, we didn't know what the reimbursements rates were going to be until December, and you all approved that budget in September. So yes, we can do what we can do, but there are some things that are still outside of our control, especially with special education. Thank you for asking. It's a great question.
We cover this subject like in bits and pieces all through the course of the year. So I was surprised by some of the information. I guess what I'd like to know is, can we get a quarterly update presentation on this so we have a better idea of where we're at?
Sure. We do one in December, which would be the 6 month. The September one is the budget. So you're getting it in September. We do one in December because that's the financial projections. What you're missing is March, and maybe that would be helpful. Mm-hmm. Right. I agree. Yep, March or April. So somewhere in that 3rd, 4th quarter, we can definitely do that.
Is there any way to do that before we make decisions on staffing? Staffing is usually March.
Correct. And I can do it in February.
Because sometimes we might
need
to cut when we wouldn't.
Right.
Maybe we try February this year and see then how it works in the calendar, but that might be a good point.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to know, if you have anything to increase programs or services.
Yep.
Is that kind of thumbs up? Oh, yeah, good, okay.
We can definitely do that.
Any other questions?
So we tentatively approve it now.
Mm-hmm. September, we'll come back with as much more information as we have. Fill in the gaps. Yeah, that's the plan. But our fiscal year starts July 1, and the law requires a tentative budget be approved. So.
Crazy.
And not you, but the state, the way that they require stuff that we don't really have information.
Thank you. Yeah. It's difficult. It's a puzzle. So, right? Oops.
If you have a recommendation, like when we get to September and we get to the assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
If any of this, if the assumptions had an impact on any of this, then maybe we could tighten some of those up.
Yeah.
If you could take an extra look at that and make any recommendations for that.
I will definitely run through those before I bring them in September. The one thing I want to remind the board of when we talk about the surplus, we just need to be careful. We did have in this budget a flat renewal for health insurance, so that's very positive. but we need to be careful because if we have another renewal that's not flat, we need to plan for those kinds of expenditure increases, and that's a significant portion. The district spends over $7 million a year on health benefits, and so a 1% increase, when you add those up, it adds up quickly. So that's one that we do make assumptions for, but we want to watch carefully. So, good. Anything else?
Anything else?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the 2019-20 tentative budget for the Kaneland Community School District 302 as presented.
So moved.
In a second? And a roll call.
Mrs. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mrs. Junk. Mr. Carey. Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. We'll move on to J3, approval of the 2019-20 amended school calendar.
Yes, annually, generally December or January, we approve the following year calendar so we can make our necessary plans for the year, hiring, and make sure the school year is ready to go. This January, when I shared it, you still needed to approve it, but I shared it as tentative because we knew there was still legislation going on specifically regarding e-learning days and what might or might not be allowed in e-learning days. So I wanted to share that in this calendar, the amended piece of it is really just two dates. It's November 26th and February 28th. Those two dates, you'll see on the new calendar, they're just back to school improvement days and the countywide institute. What we had in there previous to this amendment was e-learning days that were going to be directed and led by our directors of ed services. But as the law came out June 1st, it clarified what would and would not be allowed as far as e-learning days, and that was not one. The way we had set it up on those 2 days, going one-to-one is not allowable. So what we did was we just reversed those two and took those off just to make them back to regular school improvement days. This has been, I wanted to make sure we did get it to the ROE for submission and approval before we did bring it to the board. So it has gone through the ROE and it has been approved with those two changes based on the new state law.
Numbers of the law says that we can't schedule the learning day, but if we have a snow day, we can use the learning day.
We can. There's, with the new legislation, you're allowed up to 10 emergency days. And so right now, the last piece I was going to share is we are looking into what that might look like in our district. We want to see what our surrounding districts do, because a lot of times when there are snow days or there are consideration for emergency days or snow days, a lot of times based on our parents maybe working in other districts or other districts being teachers here, a lot of the districts tend to make similar decisions. And so we're trying to look to see what other districts might be doing for that, and we're also investigating that. So if we do work towards e-learning for emergency days, that is something that does need to be brought back to the board. There would be required agreement with the KEA what it would look like, and SPEAK, our two associations. Then that would be brought back to the board with what that plan would look like. And we also do need to inform our parents of what it's going to look like and how we'll meet the needs of special learners, how we meet the needs of students that are younger that don't have one-to-one devices. So all of that would be brought to the board, and that does need to be approved. It's either 60 or 30, I'm not sure which, 60 or 30 days prior to the first day that we use it. So it's something we would probably know towards the beginning of the school year for sure if it's viable for our district. So that's a good question. That's information that will come back.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Nope. All right, then I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the 2019-20 amended school calendar as presented.
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt. Aye. Mrs. Junk. Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlik.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. We'll move on to J4, approval of life and long-term disability insurance renewal.
Dr. Coops?
Our district's life insurance, accidental death and disability, and long-term disability insurance expires here in June. We work with the same broker, Hub International, as our health insurance coverage. This year, they, in late spring, reminded us or gave us information on this renewal. And so once I saw the quotes, I asked the brokers to go back and get more quotes, because Lincoln Financial, who we've done business with for at least 10 to 15 years came back significantly higher. Once the brokers went back and got quotes from 2 or 3 other companies, the Lincoln Financial decided to keep our premiums flat. However, in the meantime, we became interested in one of the companies called The Standard. And Hub does do business with The Standard. There are other school districts that use this company for their life insurance, accidental death, long-term disability. Their rates are actually going to save the Kaneland Employee Benefit Trust Fund, the KEBTF, about $17,000 a year. It's a 3-year renewal, so it would be about that amount each year. Additionally, there are some really nice employee assistant program services that the Standard offers, such as face-to-face sessions with licensed counselors. There are legal services, financial services. There's a brochure here in your packet. But I do know after talking with Mr. Adkins that he regularly receives calls from employees, and these services would be very beneficial for him to be able to point the employees in the right direction for some of the services. Additionally, if a person were to go on long-term disability and had child care expenses, this coverage also reimburses that employee for that, which is an enhancement. We did lose just a little bit of coverage from the other one. It was only one face-to-face counseling, but then the rest of the benefits really outweigh the Lincoln Financial. So at this point, I am recommending to the board that we renew this basic life, accidental death and disability, and long-term disability for 3 years at the rates that are listed in your packet there, with an estimated savings, again, not to the district, but to the KEBTF of about $17,000. But please know that the district does contribute about 85% of that money. The rest of the money then comes from the employees. So it's a shared trust fund for these insurance coverages.
All right, any questions?
Comments? I've raised this point many times. We only went to one broker. There's hundreds of brokers. And Hub may have the best companies to work with, they may not, but we don't know. So, in my mind, when we had this conversation about the insurance a few months ago, I assumed that this would be part of what we were giving notice on as to when it was coming up, so we knew whether or not we could send it out today. And now we have it. Is this guaranteed 3 years, or can we do a 1-year contract?
The rate is guaranteed for 3 years. I can find out if we can do a 1-year contract. The broker did go out to bid with those other companies, and I understand your point. The reason why we've continued to stick with the broker is because our health insurance rates, he's done very well for us. So, not that he couldn't do better if we bid that, but this came up.
We don't know if it can be better because we haven't bid it for many years.
Right.
So I don't agree with a 3-year contract that hasn't been vetted.
Okay.
Beyond Hub International.
Sure. I thought the savings were worthy.
They might be, but there might be more savings somewhere else. We don't know.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay, I'm a little bit confused here. So we have been using Lincoln Financial, right?
That's correct.
And now, and they came into what others had projected. But, so what we're talking about is going to whom?
The Standard?
The Standard. So we're not actually renewing with Standard, we're actually going into it with Standard.
We're renewing the coverage, but
with a different
company, and that's how the recommendation is written.
Yeah.
We're renewing the basic coverage insurance with the Standard for 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? No? All right, so I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education directs the administration to renew the basic life, accidental death, and disability and long-term disability insurance with a standard for 3 years beginning July 1st, 2019. Is there a motion for that? So moved, and a second?
Awesome.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Farber?
Aye.
Mrs. Witt? Aye. Mrs. Junk?
Aye.
Mr. Carey?
No.
Mr. Lawler?
Aye.
Motion carries 5.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I skip you?
Yep.
Mrs. Pavlik?
Aye.
Thank you. There you go.
There you
Motion
go.
carries 5-1. I didn't flip to that and I should have.
How about 7-1? 6-1.
5-1, there's 6 of
5-1.
us, yep,
Okay.
thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to the superintendent board report.
Yep, I have a couple updates. First, just as a reminder, at our last board meeting, the board did determine we wanted to do a workshop and a retreat. So President Sparber and I are meeting with representatives from the large unit district association tomorrow to look at potential dates, plan the agenda, and get that information moving forward. So you'll probably receive, by the end of the week, a doodle poll with available dates or proposed dates, and then we'll find the date that is unanimous for all of our board members. That was one. And then another, KEA negotiations continue June this Thursday, and then the second date we have scheduled following that is July 15th. And as was shared previous by Rainey, we do plan for a mediator to be at both of those negotiation sessions. And then as Mr. Rollman also shared, Taste of Kaneland is August 25th from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Hopefully you've seen the emails and social media piece. What we've tried to do is, based on our social media experts on the Taste of Kaneland committee, they said on Sunday you hit them with social media in the evening, and then on Wednesday an email to their house. So those of you that are on social media and those that are following and in the crowd too, please to make Taste of Kaneland a successful event, if you either re-like or retweet those so that we get all of our communities to come together on August 25th, as well as Nights Under the Lights and the Homecoming Parade. That would be terrific. And the last thing I just wanted to share too, just with the timing of some things going on, I've not been able to give the board a full legal update from June 2nd when all of the bills were passed and legal updates have taken place. I will get that update together soon, and either through the weekly update or at a board meeting provide some of those updates and how they'll directly impact Kaneland. So those are my updates, so thank you.
Yep, I just have one for tonight. I wanted to let the board know that the transportation truck was involved in a road incident. It wasn't an accident. One of the manholes popped up, but I've been working with the repair company as well as the insurance company, and it does look like they're going to total the truck. I don't have a value on it yet. Once I get more information, I'll be sure to include that in the Friday update, but at some point, we'll need to replace that truck once we know what the insurance is going to cover and how much. So.
Anything else from the board members? And I think we are at topics for future agendas. No?
Yeah, I think we're
Nothing? So we'll move on to our second opportunity of public comment with the rules from that I stated above. If there's anyone who'd like to make a public comment, please go to the microphone.
I had a question about the budget. When I'm Sarah Linden, I live in the district, graduated from the district, have kids that went to the district and have graduated, married a Kaneland Knight. So nights are my life. I'm here in 6th grade every day in school year. So I had a question. When you were talking about the substitute expenditure column, and it had significant changes in it, when we do internal subbing, is that in that category? You know, sometimes we have a large amount of subs that need to be in a building for teachers to go to a conference or something or be away, and occasionally there aren't enough subs to come, and so, or if someone has to leave in an emergency, and not so much in the elementary but in middle school and high school we can do internal subbing. Is that cost in that budget, or is it somewhere else in a different part of the education fund?
Yeah, and usually we don't respond directly to public comments. I don't know if this is a basic question, but usually we'll get back to you. So I appreciate your.
I just want to make sure my question was clear enough.
It's clear, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And any other public comments? No? All right. So we have executive session tonight. There will be no action taking following the session. Therefore, when we vote to go into closed session, the recording of tonight's meeting will be concluded. Tonight, we're going into executive session for collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. Is there a motion to go into executive session for that reason?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Witt?
Aye.
Mrs. Junk? Aye. Mr. Carey? Mr. Lawler?
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak?
Aye.
And Mrs. Farber?
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. And so we are adjourned. Thank you.
Camera, I'm going to talk to